Two Balls and a Mic. Today we have a guest, actually, who is part of the Sweetwater High School team. Not part of, he is the head coach, actually. Diego Espinoza. Diego, how's it going, man?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. And, we have started a partnership with Sweetwater High School. I know you, Chiba, didn't necessarily go to Sweetwater High School.
No, I mean, I went to Chula, which is kind of like a rivalry school with Sweetwater. But I'm excited to work with this team, the community, even though, technically I'm a rival person, you know?
It's all good. We'll welcome you in. And I'm pretty sure Diego also coaches with Rebels, correct?
I do. Yeah, I've been coaching with Rebels since 2016. And I have coached a lot of kids from Chula Vista High School too, so
definitely. So if we ever do have competitions, like say we go to foot golf, we do some crossbar challenges, we might be getting in contact with some of your fellow. I guess
I'll hit up who.
What do you have, homie? We'll hit up Joe Corona.
Hey man, I'm friends with all the guys that won the 2015 state final.
Ooh. But we're not here to talk about Chula Vista. We're here to talk about Sweetwater High School, Sweetwater class of 2010, and Mr. Diego, Sweetwater class of 2009, correct? Yeah. So how did this end up happening? I know I've known you for quite some years, but you ended up here at Sweetwater High School as a coach, a head coach. And if you ask me, I never thought that would actually happen, like way back when I met you. And, how did that go down, and how does it feel to be head coach of the soccer program at your alma mater?
Well, the idea started in about 2012. It's when I started working with that group of kids that you're familiar with over in the Nestor area. I figured if I can make a difference there, maybe I could come back to Sweetwater High School and make a difference here. And it took a while before we got to that point, mostly because I had been out of coaching for a bit. It took a 2-year break. So coming back was definitely a struggle, but fortunately I had some good people that helped me back to get back to this position. Victor Vargas, he's over at Castle Park High School. He was one of the coaches at Rebels at the time. Mm-hmm. And actually Victor Vargas' in-law at the time was, she was the... I'll try to keep still faced. No, I'm just kidding. What was your question? Sorry.
Just going back and talking about that 5-year plan that you had. We were talking and saying that it was impressive that it was even a thing. You usually just see that in professional sports, not necessarily high school sports, where there's just such a in-depth plan as to what you wanted to achieve. If you want to go into what that plan was a little bit more.
Yeah. The 5-year plan was basically... Sweetwater High School has always had a lot of talent. I think National City in general has always had a significant amount of talent. That could be said of most of the South Bay as well. So with us coming in, it was myself and Hector Aguilar, probably one of the best coaches out there. He's won National Cup with a couple of his teams at club level. Our initial idea was simply to try to refine the talent here at Sweetwater High School. The year prior to us coming in, they had actually made it to a CIF semifinal. They lost 2-0, I believe, or 3-1 to El Centro. So the talent was there. It was just a matter of us coming in and sort of guiding them to a good place where they can show off what they have and they can compete on a consistent basis. So part of that was obviously more aggressive trainings, more disciplined trainings, the classroom aspect of it, obviously with student athletes, because the whole purpose of this is ultimately for them to get looked at by schools, some of the local community colleges that we have some connections with, as well as some universities. And ultimately, it led to this point. We're at the 3rd year of our 5-year plan. We've promoted division. We've promoted league. It hasn't been easy. Our first year definitely was a huge learning curve. But even then, it was a relatively successful season. We went 11, 12, and 3. Last year, we went 16, 6, and 6. And this year, we're hoping to have a better season. We definitely have the talent for it, and they're much more focused than they have been in years past. So the ultimate aim is for us to be in Division I, in the top league, and competing and getting recognized by some of the schools, the colleges rather, so that these kids can go off and do good things at the collegiate level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, that's getting back into the community, and that's pretty much your mantra this whole time. When not just working at in Sweetwater, National City, or Rebels. Referring to that group of kids, these group of kids are now what? How old are they? 18? Yeah, they están peludos.
Yeah, they're the oldest one is about to turn 20.
Oh my God.
19, 18, 17 years old. They're up there, man. And I think I told you personally that this Saturday was our last day together as a team.
Yeah.
It's a team that I had coached together as a group since 2012, so 8 years. Three of the original players, Alan, Hera, and Messi, or Alan rather, those were still on the team. So yeah, it was a little sad, honestly. I'm not too keen on letting go of my teams, but these guys are going off to college. They're doing good things, and hopefully everything goes well for them.
Definitely, and it's crazy to see these kids grow. When they were just this high and literal kids, and to grow up to be, just great young men after having grown up in a. I was saying not the ideal of places, and you yourself, Diego, and even Chiva and I, we've grown up in the South Bay, and the South Bay can be rough, but this is the beautiful thing about it, that people move on from it in a positive way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Diego. So I wanted to ask. I know this upcoming year is like the centennial, so I wanted to ask, like, how. Are you planning on motivating like this year's team and making them kind of take it a little more seriously than other years, especially since it's such a special year for the school?
Yeah, definitely. So this year, actually, it's a school effort. The athletic department, the alumni association, we're all sort of teaming up and trying to figure out what the best way to, one, motivate our current crop of players, two, try to get the players, or the alumni rather, the former players, to come back and support us. And it's really just a collective SUHi pride sort of thing, where we want to make sure that our players understand what this means by bringing in the alumni. And this year for the soccer season, at least, I can't speak for the other sports because I'm not sure what they have in mind, but at least for the soccer season, we're going to try to have some reunions with those CIF teams. There was one from the 90s and one from 2008. We're going to try to get some of those players to come out and talk to the players. We're going to have some other former SUHi soccer alumni come out and talk to our current crop of players, just to motivate them, just to let them know what how significant it is to be part of the SUHi tradition, and definitely try to motivate them to do something with the community that we have, because it's not just about being a part of the community when you're a kid, it's giving back. And that's something that I've tried to instill within the program. I myself, like you guys mentioned, I'm a Sweetwater graduate, but I have two staff members who aren't. One is Hector Aguilar, my JV coach, but he grew up in Crawford in similar demographic regions, as well as Victor Andrade, who grew up, actually, he was a Southwest alumni. But these guys understand what it's like to be South Bay kids. So they come in here and they very much share the same ideals that I do. And it's just motivating the kids to, one, learn as much as they can, two, make sure they're doing something with what they're learning, and three, ultimately coming back and giving back to the community if they can.
Definitely. And something I was even explaining to Chiva over here is that, Sweetwater, what we say is once a devil, always a devil, and, 100% true, because, a lot of the people that still live in National City have always lived in National City. It's not like Chula Vista that has Montgomery, has Bonita Vista, Chula Vista, Otay. There's just one high school in National City, and it's Sweetwater. And everybody passes through Sweetwater at some point, or knows somebody in National City that's passed through Sweetwater. And it's a tradition, man. And that's something beautiful. Personally, I went to Otay Ranch in my freshman year for 2 weeks because I was part of the Academy of Criminology and Justice, and I did like walls and stuff. But my thing was, like, I had gone to Sweetwater before, and when you go into the old gym, or the new gym now, is you see all those banners. Otay Ranch had like 3 at that time.
Yeah, brand new school.
It was a brand new school, and there's just no sense of pride or tradition as strong. I want to say there wasn't, but as strong and as what they have in Sweetwater. And even and I'll tell you in this, again, because you went to Chula, and Chula's part of the history of Sweetwater.
I can definitely relate to the whole like pride and tradition, because Chula Vista High School was also a school full of tradition, and you go in the gym and they have a lot of banners as well. So I mean, I understand and I completely agree. I mean, it's not Chula Vista really high school is not really too far from Sweetwater.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just a couple blocks of divides, but at the end of the day, it's the same community. It's similar communities.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's the same struggles for everyone.
Definitely, and at the end of the day, Sweetwater's better, so it's all good. I find it interesting that you have your Man U and I'm Chelsea, and
my high school colors are
But Diego, tell us, what are some of the plans that you're going to have for this upcoming centennial year? I know, we're making as much attention to the centennial year, but you yourself, for the soccer community, for the team, what are some things that you're looking at doing? You mentioned the alumni. What else?
We're doing the alumni. We're also doing a legacy award. We're hoping to recognize a couple of the former Sweetwater soccer graduates. This is actually the school centennial, but it's the program's 50th anniversary. We've only been around for 50 years. So we're hoping to develop some sort of award to recognize some key people that have come through and played for the program. So we're hoping to start doing a couple of nominations and some voting sometime in probably August, October. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, something that we were working on last year, but unfortunately we couldn't because we had a field problem last year. I'm not sure if you guys were aware. Our turf was completely messed up at the beginning of last season. Mm-hmm. So they sent us down to the lower field, which, if I'm completely honest with you, gave us a huge home field advantage because it was an absolutely tiny field. You think back to Spurs at White Hart Lane, they could press for days because the field was just tiny. That was our advantage. So we definitely like that, but we have a brand new field. And as a result, we had to cancel a couple of soccer clinics where we're going to have some soccer clinics for the kids, for National City kids. It was going to be free. Yeah. But we're hoping to reschedule that again this year. And all just sort of depends on what COVID allows us to do. Mm-hmm. So hopefully there isn't a second wave. And if there isn't, then we're going to have a bunch of the kids out there. And we're going to have hopefully San Diego Soccer's had agreed to come out. Julie V, who I've worked with for a couple of years, he'll be coming out as well. And then aside from that, it's just a matter of us also having some fundraisers. And like I said, fundraising for us is mostly, it's important because obviously we need to fundraise to keep the program as vital as possible. But it's also important for us because it allows us to have the players interact with the community and with those former players. And like I mentioned, Sweetwater is very much an interwoven, interconnected community. You think National City, you think Sweetwater, because like you said, it's only one high school for the city. So it's really very much a key part of our lives here. So that's what we keep trying to do, man.
No, that's great. And speaking in that, we're in this new, different era. We would have loved to have you in person in my almost clean garage. But what are some of the things and complications or challenges that you have been facing, or what are some of the positives that you're now seeing? Because we're now 3 months into this quarantine COVID existence we've had. Obviously, for your former players that were seniors, very different end to the year than any other senior classes ever had. But now looking into next year, what are some positives, or where are we at with high school sports, specifically soccer?
So my understanding for high school sports is that everything is going to go as planned. The only complications are face coverings for the coaches are going to be required up to this point, and also hydration. All the kids have to take their own water bottle. Those are the only complications right now for high school soccer. For club soccer, it's a little more complicated. For the next we start up again tomorrow. There were some soft openings for Rebels these past 2 days, but we start up again tomorrow. And the players aren't allowed to be within 6 feet of each other. So trainings are complicated because, you have to keep the kids apart. And you've worked with my teams before, and the fluidity and the possession that they have to have. Mm-hmm. So I have to really curtail that at the moment and just kind of figure out drills to keep them separated, but also keep them working on their skills. And then our competition level, we're building teams still. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to go about that, but obviously travel, that's going to be significant for this upcoming season, both for club and for high school, because we just simply can't go about traveling everywhere with some of the travel restrictions that are still around. Yeah. I had hoped to plan some games up in Riverside for the Sweetwater boys, but I don't think that'll happen. There's a program up there that we were interested in competing with, but obviously we're going to have to stay local.
Nice. So, I wanted to ask you, I'm really interested to know what your style of soccer is, and what is the style you want to implement into the Sweetwater program.
Yeah, so Fluffy, or rather Tony, has worked with me for. Sorry about that.
It's all good. I'll leave that in there. People will ask. It'll be fun. You'll ask. You have no idea.
So Tony's worked with a couple of my teams. It really just sort of depends on the players that you have. You want to go out there as a coach and you want to make sure that the players are competing in every game. And sometimes you have to limit what you tell them in regards to possession. You have to limit what you tell them in regards to some of the ideals that you have. And you really have to adjust to the players that you have, because ultimately not every team can play possession. Not every team can play counterattack. Not every team can play direct, which is, old school 4-4-2 long ball. Not every team can do that. Over at Sweetwater High School, the first year was relatively difficult. I will admit that, because I came over from Hilltop. At Hilltop, we were doing counter pressing, we were doing possession, we were doing quick counterattacks, and it was very efficient, very good for us overall. We had a lot of success because of it. And then over at Sweetwater High School, the field was a little bigger. The quality of the players wasn't less, but the ideas were for them to constantly attack as opposed to just keeping it sometimes. We were vulnerable at the back. We were countered quite a bit. I remember going back to Olympian, a game that honestly we had maybe about 60-70% possession, and we lost in 2 counterattacks. Even this year, when we had a much better team that they could pass the ball and they could keep it and they could move forward as quickly as it possibly could, we lost again Olympian on a counterattack. So it's really figuring out what the talent is that you have, because in National City, like I mentioned, we have really, really great talent. But it's a lot of dribblers. It's a lot of kids that want to do the individual play, the solo play, because they all go play pickup games at El Tillon or at Kimball, and it's what they do there. So when they come and they play for Sweetwater High School, they want to do the same thing, but we try to play as a team here. So it's a little disjointed, especially at the beginning of the season. But as we get on with the rest of the season, especially towards the last 2 months, January, February, usually that's when the ideas start coming in that we try to implement for them. And we start getting back into that possession, simple style that allows us to break down a team. And like I mentioned, sometimes you just have to adapt. And if we hit a couple of long balls and get lucky, we will. That definitely worked against Hilltop, one of our main rivals. We lost to them away. We tried to play possession as much as we could, and then we played at Sweetwater, and we got lucky on 3 long ball counterattacks. So it worked out.
Nice. I like that.
So with the new developing teams that we have here in the professional setting, we have 1904 FC, we have SD Loyal. San Diego Soccer. Nobody mentions San Diego Soccer, but it's a thing. All right, it's a professional team that's won championships for San Diego. All right, but what does that mean for, say, a high school coach or a coach who has that age range where they're about to either be seen by scouts, or they could be, maybe in an academy, or because Diego here has had several players try out and be successful in their own right. He's gone to Seattle for a Sounders tryout, just some of those things. But now you have a professional team that hopefully makes it to the MLS, and even then USL isn't that bad, as we've discovered. What does that mean for developing, not having to travel to Seattle for a professional, I guess, tryout?
Yeah, incentive. I think that's the biggest thing. It gives them an incentive to keep working. One of the things that you get a lot with the kids, and I had this with the group that I just let go. Some of the boys were pretty much done after the team that we had. But with these teams coming up, with these teams gaining status, like 1904, like SD Loyal, like Soccers, who have been around forever. But if you can get the kids to be given the sort of goal that ultimately they could play for 1904, they could play for SD Loyal, they could play for them, for Soccers rather, or for another team local, it gives them motivation to keep working. And moreover, it gives us the ability to keep pushing them and keep making them learn and keep working as much as they possibly can in a team setting, in a practice, and all that stuff, because it makes it very real for them. I think one of the struggles that we had, especially when you and I were growing up, was that the closest team we had was Cholos. or LA Galaxy professionally. So we kind of struggle to fill that void. Is like, why do we keep working? Why do we keep playing? Why do we keep doing any of that? And now that they're a little more in your face, especially just, you have, is it 1904, they played at Lincoln High School.
Yeah.
A lot of these kids at Sweetwater High School, they could literally walk to the game. So it gives them a little more motivation, it makes it a little bit more real for them to keep working.
What did you think of that game? Because we did catch up with you for that first home game and only home game for 1904. That seems like 5 years ago. We weren't able to say the whole time, but how did you see the level of play for 1904 live?
I liked it. I thought that it was a little narrow, but I think that's mostly because of the field. I'm sure that if they played on a wider field, it'd be a little bit different. But I like the level of play. I like the level of commitment, the attention to detail to the players, because I had a couple of the kids with me during that game. The attention to detail that the players were giving to the game at all times, on or off the ball, was something that I think a lot of these young players have to see, because like I mentioned, it's very difficult for us to go and watch Cholos. It's very difficult for us to go and watch LA Galaxy. So if you could go to a 1904 game or a SD Loyal game, and you could take your team to watch them, and you could, tell them, look how they're paying attention, look how they're moving off the ball, look how they're shifting, look at how they're communicating. I think that's the biggest key for a lot of the teams that I've trained, is communication. A lot of these kids don't want to talk, but if you take them to a professional game and these pro players are constantly communicating with each other, constantly talking to each other, those lessons that we're trying to have them learn on the practice field definitely sink in a little deeper. But I like the competition. I like 1904. I thought they were a pretty solid team. I'm not sure. I can't remember who they were playing, but, I enjoyed the game. So it was good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I know working with high school pretty much teenagers already, sometimes it can get difficult, especially with discipline. Like, I know for me, sometimes I would be like, I'm not going to go to class today. I'm going to ditch something. So I want to ask, like, how do you handle that whole discipline aspect and making them realize that, like, the classroom is just as important as on the field?
Very true.
Communication. The thing is, a lot of the kids that I've worked with over the years, they have a problem with authority figures. And the problem with an authority figure is that for them, it's a teacher, for them, it's a coach, for them, it's literally anybody that tells them what to do, And for me to let them know that it's important for them to have their education, to go to class, to do all that stuff, sometimes I have to be a hard ass, and I have to make sure that I'm constantly on their cases about it. At the beginning of the season, we have a contract. I check up on their attendance. That's part of the contract. I check up on their attendance. I check up on their grades. If they miss 5 practices, they're off the team. If they're not communicating with me because they're late, there's a potential for them to be kicked off the team. And then I'll let them know that ultimately it's my decision, and the only people that can bring them back from that is the team. So, like I mentioned, if they miss 5 practices, for whatever reason, if they miss 5 practices, they have to be voted back onto the team. And that actually happened. We had 2 players who the team had to decide whether they wanted to keep him or not. They voted him in, but that's ultimately the decisions that we together collectively have to make. And like I said, it's my decision as a head coach to kick somebody off a team because of discipline, because of grades, because of whatever reasons. But at the beginning of the season, I make it very clear to them. So I think it's those expectations that we lay out for them at the beginning of the season, where they're going to be held accountable. I'm not going to baby them. I'm not going to tell them, hey, you're on the 4th one. If you get another one, you're going to get kicked out. Or, hey, why were you not here? It's just a matter of, okay, you messed up. Explain to me once. If I don't like the reasoning, then, I have to make a decision. And it's just treating them like adults. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Because that's kind of what some of these kids just want, is they want to be treated like an adult, not to be babied. And that's definitely what I do. I just talk to them as adults. I have my expectations clear for them. And that's how we go.
Yeah, that kind of takes that stigma off of, it's just, it's high school sports, and, what you're teaching these kids is not just valuable information for in a sports setting, but just life tips and just pro tips as far as
ready.
Yeah, getting them ready for that real life, and as soon as they get out, a couple months after they graduate. But how have you been doing recruiting wise? I mean, if I'm somebody, if I'm a kid who's on the fence, who maybe was going to see this and say, maybe I should try out, maybe I shouldn't? Like, what would you say to that student that's on the fence of trying out because they're good enough, but they might not want to, or just, I don't know.
Yeah. So it was a little odd. I won't mention who the previous coach was, but he apparently was not keen on giving everybody a chance. I've only heard this from former players.
Mm-hmm.
My idea is, if I want the team to be as best as they possibly can, I have to see all of the talent available. So I invite everybody, and I go to the freshman orientations. They have a sports freshman orientation, and I go out there and I talk to the kids and I let them know, hey, there's a possibility that if you guys are good enough, you'll bump a senior off the roster, and that's perfectly fine because it's for the program. And I'll go and talk to some of the kids in the classroom settings. We just brought on Victor Andrade, who was a Granger Junior High School coach. So a lot of the kids adore the guy because he works really well. He's very keen on inclusion, on making the kids feel like they're part of something. And that's definitely something that we wanted in the program. So Victor's not part of it. Hector, as I mentioned, is one of the more renowned coaches in club soccer, especially in the South Bay. So having him around has definitely been good for our numbers. And it's just a matter of selling the idea that they're going to be representing not only Sweetwater High School, but the community. That's also been a big thing for us because, like I said, a lot of these kids, as much as they want to go out there and they want to compete, as much as they want to be able to go to some of the best clubs in San Diego, they can't afford it. So Sweetwater High School for some of them is their chance, to show off their talent, to show off what they can do. So I want to give them that opportunity. I want to give them that platform. So I invite everybody, and I try to make the tryouts as inclusive as possible as far as me being able to see everybody who shows up. Obviously, there's always one or two people that are discontent with the way the tryout processes are. But if the players are really good and they believe that they can actually make an impact, I want them out there, and I want to see what they can do. And it doesn't matter if they're a senior. It doesn't matter if they're a freshman. If I think they're going to be good enough for our program, I'm going to take them. My first year, actually, we had a freshman player. And he's going to be probably a key player this year. This is his third year. So his name's Osvaldo. He's probably one of our better talents. He's a monster, man. He's a short guy. Mm-hmm. He's got hops. He's got speed. He's got ability. And all the kids respect him. And like I said, my first year there, he was a freshman. So it doesn't matter what your age is, as long as you're willing to commit to the program and you can commit to what we're trying to do, we're going to give you a chance.
Yeah. So what would you say is the most rewarding thing about working this job that you have right now, especially with Sweetwater?
As far as coaching, or as far as just with Sweetwater?
As far as coaching.
I think it's complicated only because a lot of the kids that I work with are generally on the more at-risk side. So I think what's important for me is just letting them know that there's a sense of normalcy to life outside of whatever it is that their daily life is. A lot of the kids, and I have stories that I could tell you for days, have difficult home lives. And they have some realities that would shock us in truth. Some of the stuff that they go through at the age of 15, 16, 17 is stuff that us as adults, we can't really fathom. And I think it's important for me to give them an environment, a setting where they can feel comfortable, where they can talk freely, where they can just be themselves. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've done. I've been coaching for a little over a decade now. And it's always been big for me to just make sure that the kids feel welcome and that I'm treating them like adults. So they're feeling responsibilities and they know what they have to live up to. But at the same time, that they can fail every once in a while. And it's not a big deal. I think a lot of the kids that I work with that come from these difficult backgrounds, they're afraid of failure because of one reason or another. And I think with me, I'm relatively strict, but I'm fair. If you're my player, I'll go out and fight for you. And they can make a mistake as long as they recognize it and as long as they're willing to fix it. And if not, obviously, I'm going to get on their case about it. But it's a matter of inclusion, comfort, and growth. I want them to just be, at the end of the day, If they make it pro, that's great. But I just want them to be able to be normal adults and functional adults and live a happy life. That's my aim. That's my goal. If they make it as pros, obviously that's a good thing, but I just want them to be good people.
I like that. Fun fact. Be good people is actually the last thing one of our favorite teachers says every day. Yeah, at the end of the day, Miss Garcia always told us, be good people. She'd hold you after the bell, and it's true. And if you want to go.
And that's one of, if I'm honest with you, I think that was one of my main motivators, because I could have stayed at Hilltop. I could have gone to another school. Sweetwater Pride, I think, for me, ultimately came back to the teachers that I had. You know, Miss Rosenbach, Miss Garcia, Miss Zuniga, Miss Hall, Mr. Esperon, Griggs. Fun fact, I failed 4 semesters of Rachel Griggs' class. She was my math teacher. 4 semesters in a row. I failed them. And she's the first person to give me a job at high school. She just said that I wasn't dumb, I was just lazy. And she had a complete point.
No, definitely.
So it's a matter of those teachers just believing in you in spite of whatever it is that's going on. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to come back to Sweetwater, just to give back a bit of what they gave to me, because they were huge in my life. So
yeah, and every single one of those teachers I know, and they are wonderful, wonderful human beings. And you know, just the things that the amount of time and effort that it takes to care for so many kids in such difficult circumstances, and you know, make them feel special. And honestly, like look at us. If we were to tell anybody, if we were to tell Esperon, if we were to tell Garcia or Hall that I would be interviewing Diego because he's the head coach of the soccer team at Sweetwater while I'm doing some sort of podcast, and then this would be, you know, seen by a bunch of people, like, you know, it's just one of those things where it just wouldn't, it's not supposed to happen. And
yeah, I think they would believe in it, but if you would have told anybody else that knew us back then, they wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, in year 3 at Sweetwater, what has been one of the best or the best or a best memory that you've had, not necessarily coaching, just Sweetwater related, like one of those like impressions, that those classic Sweetwater impressions that you just never forget?
There's been a lot. Sweetwater, I think it's a culture unto itself. I think that's it. But I think that could be said to the same. I think Chiva could say that about Chula Vista High School too, that It's just kind of a culture unto itself. But the kids here, they're tough, man. They don't back down. They'll go out there and they'll fight as much as they can, especially when it comes to pride. So when they're out there and they're playing, there were some games where, you know, I've been coaching for years, and I see the situation. I kind of get a gut feeling of things, and I'm like, dude, we're out of this. We're not going to win this. And then they come back, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you guys are proving me wrong. And I think it's that never give up, chip on your shoulder, want to prove everybody, yeah, you can't see me sort of thing. That's honestly why I like working with these kids is you put a challenge and they'll try to meet it, if not exceed it. And we'll play some really, really tough teams. I mean, last year, for example, was supposed to be the second part of a transitional year of this 5-year plan. And we were 1 win away from winning a banner. We were 1 win away from a CIF semifinal. We were supposed to get promoted this year, not last year. So, you know, they're one step ahead of what the plan was. And, you know, I like that. I like that I can tell these kids, hey, we're gonna try to win banner this season. It's up to you guys. And they'll go out there and they'll try to win it. And I really, really do enjoy it.
That goes back to exactly like why these kids also, you know, in looking back, like you so much and love you so much and show you love, because you show them that love and that respect. And usually I don't want to speak for everybody, but you know, some of the kids there, you know, don't necessarily have that. And honestly, it's that father figure in a way that they don't necessarily have. And a lot of them just attached to it and are much better people because of it. And it's honestly thanks to you. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with a couple of quick fire questions real quick, Mr. Diego. If you're ready. Adidas sure. Or Nike?
Adidas.
Perfect. Man City or Man United?
City.
Oh man,
Whew.
Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
VAR or no VAR?
No VAR.
Is Courtois top 5 goalkeeper?
Top 5 goalkeeper in what regard?
Currently, right now, in talent.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
Thank you.
not. Ow. Okay.
Thank
Sure. Well, I disagree. Baseball or soccer?
Soccer.
Okay.
I do like baseball. I grew up playing baseball and I love it. But soccer.
For those that don't know, Diego has a very deep, dark past with baseball, insofar that I referred to him as having baseball eyes for years. He had no idea what that means. To this day, he still doesn't know what it means, but he looks like he's played baseball, and he played baseball. Pretty good player. But you did go into soccer as a goalkeeper. Better goalkeeper, you or me? And why?
Oh, you're one of the best, man. Seriously.
And why?
Wow. Okay.
That's Profe Diego saying it, so it has to be true.
That's me. Whatever legitimacy I have is there. It's man. You were one of the best. You're really good at just reading the game. We played a couple games together. I don't think I've ever felt comfortable with any other goalkeeper other than you. And I remember you yelling a lot at me and I yelling a lot at you, but it always worked out.
Yeah, all right, we're gonna have to stop by out of practice one day. Tony put on his cleats, his gloves, and have some of the players shoot some PKs.
Fun fact: those
absolutely. Come out here whenever you guys want.
No, yeah, we're definitely going to do that, and we're planning on doing a couple videos, a couple of like I said, crossbar challenges, even go maybe down to foot golf in National City and play a couple rounds with a couple of the players. But
Fun.
Diego has a huge foot. I have a huge foot, so I have to thank him for years of cleats that I've worn to this day. The cleats that I still wear are the Copa, the kangaroos.
Yeah.
Kangaroo skin.
I gave you those like 5-6 years ago.
And I still wear them, and they're still there, and shoes don't last me. And it's crazy that I still have them, and they're so comfortable. And, oh, man, I can't live without those, man. Those are awesome. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But definitely, we're going to go ahead and keep checking in throughout the year as we get closer to soccer season starting. When tryouts happen, we're going to try to keep this open. We're going to go ahead and try to get people from CIF teams so far on, and just a lot of content coming through, and really excited to have you guys and highlight you guys and the centennial year and the 50th year anniversary of the soccer program as well. And honestly, Chiva is too. I was hesitant, like, hey, you're from Chula Vista, you're gonna get some hate, but he's like, nah, man, like, it's all good. It's part of it. Like, let's go.
It's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's for a good cause, a great community, and I'm excited for this.
Yeah, bro. We all shop at the same Walmart. We all shop at that Broadway Walmart next to Best Buy. Like, it's all up. Like,
Yeah.
I always thought that was National City. Yeah. But thank you, Diego. Thank you for joining us, man. Stick around a little bit after and kind of do a little discussing after. And yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks.
you,
I
man.
appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
Definitely.